Hello, everyone, and welcome to week four. I'm sorry I am recording this video 1 week. Um, did I say 1 week? I'm sorry. One day after I have promised you, I promised that I will record the video every Saturday. But this week I am dealing with some flu symptoms. Um, um, they are very violent, actually. But I am negative for COVID, so that's a good thing. But I have most of the COVID symptoms actually. Um, so this is why I am pushing through my to-do list. So that's about it. Um, I hope everyone is doing great. Let me share a slide that I will show through which what I will be doing today in this video. And there are other slides that I will use for explaining some concepts. But let's look at the agenda first. So for today's video, I want to talk about four things. Number one, I want to say a note on grading the discussion posts, something that I did today. Uh, and I also wanted to talk about grading proposals for project two, which is I am doing right now. I think I graded like maybe 5 or 6 students, so I still have another maybe 9 students that I'll be grading. Maybe, hopefully by tomorrow, I would have finished that. I want to say some comments on your last week's discussion on evaluating sources and news and fake news. I think this was an excellent discussion that we had on the forum. I even participated in it, in some sense, not to everyone for sure, but I made like uh, a few comments on each of you. Not each of you, on some of you, I'm sorry. And finally, I want to introduce some concepts of genre and genre analysis. So let me start first by the notes on grading the discussion posts. So discussion posts um, are, I would say, the most important element of communication in this class. This is an online class, asynchronous. I do not get to meet you in person, and I do not get to hear your voice in most of the class components, except for the components in which you will be, for example, recording a video presentation. So say it's the same thing for like between you, not just between you and me, but between you and like among each other. Because to get a sense of being in the classroom, not just like the feeling of being in the classroom, but it is a co-learning space. Like I cannot claim that I hold the knowledge and I am pouring the knowledge onto you. It is a space that we create together in order to learn from one another before even learning from the materials. So participation in discussion posts is key element for success, and it cannot be um, just an assignment that you check out. Uh, and let me explain this point. There are some assignments that are individual, it's just for you. And sometimes if you are late on this assignment, let's say, you ask for an extension, I can easily give the extension. It's for you. But there are other assignments that are not just for you. It is for the whole progression of the class. Missing on those assignments or trying to do them late will kind of like it will lose its value. It lose its function in the class as a communicative element. So I just wanted to mention this so you can be mindful about discussion posts. Another thing that I want to mention, definitely for the majority of you, I want to literally, I cannot thank you enough for the effort that you make in the discussion post and the replies that you make. It's making the class very lively. However, for very few of you, I just want to say a comment in general. In the discussion posts, you need to engage with the sources. You like the discussion post should be the product of your engagement with the different sources and putting them together and stating your takeaways from them, sharing them with your peers and with me. Um, so as you are doing that, you need to be specific. Like your post cannot be just general statements about the title or the theme of the week. Like, for example, fake news. I will write a post about fake news and how bad they are and how I encounter them in my daily life. But you have not mentioned any of the sources or the movie, or scenes from the movie, that you can connect together, which gives the impression that possibly you have not even read the sources. You know, that's a possibility. But the more important thing is that it makes your learning not visible to you or to other classmates who should be learning from your takeaways. So if you have not read the sources, do not do the discussion post. That's it. If you will do the discussion post, do it effectively. So you would not mislead your peers in this forum, because they take time reading your post and answering your question. And that time is valuable. Uh, what else? So I just wanted to mention that to stress that point of being specific when you are talking about your learning from the sources. Not just your learning, even critique. Feel free, and I am trying to tailor the course to the best of my ability to suit your um, your life. Okay. And that's one thing that I try to keep in my courses. Like I cannot say that I try to make my courses fun. Sometimes they are not fun at all. Sometimes they are, and stressful. But what I try to make is that I'm trying to make my courses meaningful and the selection of materials meaningful. And this is actually what I saw in most of the posts. Like many of you relating the posts and specific instances of the materials to your own lives. Many of you talked about, for example, the elections and the spread of fake news and detecting fake news and the value of cross-examining sources. I'm sorry, I just moved the laptop. I was I had some notes as I was reading. I think Drew was talking about confirmation bias and how sometimes fake news or some political figures are picking facts that fit their narrative. Like they are not actually after distinguishing facts from fancy, but they are selective on the facts that will still fit their narrative. And also, I saw another important dialogue between Charisma, and I hope I'm saying the name correctly because I was like, is it charisma like the word charisma or charisma because it is CH? Um, and Alicia, they were saying a very important note on what it means to have fake news or like the potential interpretation of the word fake, and there was one important uh, 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 I would say idea that was brought up by uh, both of them, Charisma and Alicia, that fake news are sometimes it's not about that they are not true, but they are incomplete. And this hit a chord in my experience with fake news. And I think there is a video that I have not added to your sources. It's called The Danger of a Single Story. And it's a kind of it's a TED talk. And the speaker talks about this, like how stereotyping is not about saying wrong information, but it's saying information that does not have context, and the context is stripped purposefully, you know, and how this is a form of uh, 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 misinformation, you know. Um, um, and as I was saying, many of you related the topics to the different um, uh, ways of life for each other. So going back to my point, when I was saying that discussion posts should be meaningful. So when you are doing them, give them the attention that they deserve. That's one thing. The next thing that I want to talk about are the proposals. So I am grading your proposals even before I grade your first assignment, and that's because the proposals are contingent with the next step in project two. So I want to give you feedback quickly to tell you if your proposal is accepted or not accepted, or needs modification or needs more research. So you can know what you need to do before you go ahead and do the next step. Okay. So I am on it, and but so far I see very nice work. Okay. Um, that's about the grading the proposal. Comment on last week's discussion on evaluating sources and news. I think I kind of already said that with that point up above. I was um, inspired by your posts, by most of them. I think I was very happy that you related to the sources in many different ways. And to be honest, I made this project specifically very early in the semester because I know we needed to have it, because the time called for it, the time of the elections. You know, elections, uh, um, if there is anything that we will want to discuss about elections, is the idea of evaluating information. Um, And in this class, as a writing and communication class, we definitely want to have that space of what it means to evaluate information. And I think many of you related to that. I think even maybe a couple of you talked about the debate, the recent debate between former President Trump and the Vice President Kamala Harris. I sent you a reminder about it when I saw the flyer um, in Milliken, and I hope that it helped you remember, or it gave that. I'm not sure if you knew about it or if you attended. I asked some of my students who are in the face-to-face classes, and they said that they attend. Like some of them attended. So I was very happy that I saw it first, I mean, and I also cared to send it because sometimes I was like, should I send it? And it just came to my mind, like, why not send it to my students? I think that's an opportunity to let them know about what's happening. I actually found out that at ISU we didn't have it. We didn't have a similar event. You know, I try because I live near ISU. I live in Bloomington, so there was no way for me to attend the event at Milliken unless I would stay until very late at night, and I didn't want to do that. So I was looking for a similar event at ISU, but I couldn't find. Uh, I found like my office neighbor didn't even know about the event, and I was like, wow. I felt like Millikan University was doing a far better job, uh, I would say, in their civic engagement and letting students and faculty know about these important events, because that's an event where we get to see the two candidates speak together, talk to each other. Um, and yeah. So for your post, as I said earlier, it was very important for me to see you connecting this to your own lives and to think about, okay, if we all live through this life that is full of information, but also full of misinformation and disinformation and fake news, what do we need to do? And it's always developing. There is no recipe. Like, I don't think any of the materials that we read has a recipe for what makes a good or reliable source. But through them, we can discuss the skills that we need to have and to even work on, because it is continuous. And probably I said that in the last video, you know, uh, fake news are always taking different forms. Like, even with, especially with the recent development of artificial intelligence, AI, we can see new forms of, like, videos, for example, for people speaking, and they never said that, but I think it was something about Taylor Swift when there was a kind of an AI video saying that she endorsed President Trump, and then it was like, no, she didn't, and things like that. So the level of fake news is the stakes are getting higher. And with that, also our skills need to get higher and take different forms of how to live in this world and understand those concepts. So, as I said, one very important idea that was brought up, and I wanted to share it with everyone, the idea that was brought up by Charisma and Alicia, like the attention to the idea that fake news are not always wrong. Sometimes fake news are correct, but not complete, and that is its problem, and it's a very big problem. Okay. um like one thing that uh, I think for example, as an international scholar, experience sometimes is that all Middle Easterns or many Middle Easterns are terrorists. That was uh, a thought that was propagated widely after 9/11. And many Egyptians and Middle Easterns who lived in the US struggled tremendously because of that. And even for me, and you see, after how many years after 9/11, it is still something that people think, many people think. And we see this in our interaction with people in I mean, some of the American residents here. So does that mean that there is no terrorists in the Middle East? No, there is. But does that mean that the Middle East is full of terrorists? That's another thing, you know. I think also in the recent debate about President Trump, when he was talking about immigrants, and he said they are eating cats and dogs. I think some of you brought the idea of the like the in your discussion post you mentioned the debate, but I'm not sure if you mentioned this. But we talked about it in the class, me and my students in the face-to-face class. The idea of they are eating cats and dogs. And there has been circulating, like, there is a video of someone getting arrested for eating the cats or a cat. But does that mean that they are eating cats and dogs. That's the problem. That's the problem of fake news. Is that I loved it when Alicia and Charisma brought this up in their thread, that someone would say, "Okay, I have the video. Someone was arrested and she was eating a cat. Okay, it is true." No, it is not true. If you look at the context, first, this specific video, I think the the what was meant by that statement, it was about the Chinese immigrants. And the woman in that video was not Chinese in the first place. And she was not from Springfield. It was in a different place. But using that statement, using that as a fact without the context to describe immigrants, this is the problem. And this is just an example, and you can find, like here, I'm just giving an example from one side of the debate, but I think we can find these strategies of developing fake stories on many different sides. Um, so I just wanted to say that. So keep it up, and the discussion posts. If you miss the discussion post, then you need to email me so we can talk about this. But I think for the majority of you, you had your discussion posts and replies on time, and everything is fine. So the third thing, or the fourth thing that I want to talk about, and this is I would say, a very important component in the video. And I encourage you to take to have notes, to take notes, because what I am going to say now will matter not just for this project, but also for the following one and even beyond. And you need to mention this in your uptake document. So please pay attention. And why I am making this introduction? Because some of these concepts are new to you. Okay. What I am going to say will help you a lot with the materials that you will be reading, and the next steps in the project. So the first thing that I want to say is the concept of genre. So from my experience, and I think from the experience of uh, many of you, if I would say what genre means to you, the first thing that will come up to our mind is categories, categories of music, genres like pop, rock, classics, categories of movies, categories of books. But for our writing studies, in the field of writing studies, and as if you remember, at the start of this course, we talked about how we will work on writing from a sociolinguistic perspective. And what we mean by sociolinguistic is that we will try to see how writing works in the world and in the society, not in the classroom necessarily. Excuse me. So, for example, the traditional way of dealing with writing in the classroom is to give you a list of expectations for a certain document, like let's say the 5-paragraph essay or even a research paper or a proposal, and then you just follow the expectations and that's it. But what we want to do in this class is to actually see beyond the classroom, how do people write? Because we want this class to be an opportunity for you to prepare yourself for using your writing skills as a professional and then as an academic, as a student, um, and take ownership of it, like the way you take ownership of your writing, for example, on your social media, So that this approach of trying to work on right or to study writing from this perspective calls for kind of I would say a bold attitude of not just trying to find the list of instructions, but to actually tolerate some kind of complexity. Because writing is an invention, a human invention. Like I think we are the only creatures who write. And it has been developing for thousands of years in many different languages and in many different places. So studying that will take some work. But if you study it and if you become an effective writer, I think it can revolutionize your way of uh, communicating in your work. Because look at the world where we live in. You know how complex it is, how human beings are able to, we are able to go to space. Like, do you think this is happening with just like voice communication? Or like some people shouting at each other and telling each other instructions verbally. It happens through a very complex system of written communication, and uh, without which we could have never made those complex activity systems. So after we spent like I would say 2 weeks on discussing the content of our project, we will spend another 2 weeks on discussing writing and how we can put this content into the genre of infographic, and through which also we will be studying the concept of genre and other concepts that will help us along the way. So I have a quick presentation that I want to share with you with some concepts. So the first basic definition of genre that from writing studies that I want to share is called um, it defines genre as a kind of production that is possible to identify by understanding the conventions or features that make that production recognizable. So in this definition, I think it aligns with our understanding of genres. When we say categories, we mean like some works that have some certain recognizable features or conventions that when we see them, we put this work in certain category. Like, for example, when we hear certain music, we know that this is a horror movie uh, versus romantic movie. Um, Same with um, books. Like when it starts with Once Upon a Time, it's a convention for a certain genre, and so on and so on. So this is the basic definition that we all know, but it is kind of like I would say well articulated. Uh, One of the theorists in the writing studies made a critique to this definition. And this scholar, her name is Amy DeWitt. She made a very important critique. And she said that this definition is not wrong, but it is not capturing the essence of genre. Yes, genres are products that have some characteristics that through them we can identify them. But this does not capture why we create those products in the first place. Okay. And she made another definition that she thinks is like better articulates that or better deserves the title of a definition for genre. So here are two definitions, and let's start with the first definition that she made. So she said that genre is a typified response to a recurring situation. And I know that it's kind of complex, but let I will explain it. Do not worry. There are some, I would say, specialized vocabulary here or words here. Okay. It is a typified response to a recurring situation. So let me give you an example, and this example is in the article. When she thinks about a piece of writing, whatever that is, I'm not sure if I still have the brochure that I showed you previously. I mean, the Amtrak brochure, it was here. Let's say, let's say uh, I have another, I think this is a small flyer for the Spanish club. It's called Fiesta Latina. If we think about this flyer, I knew it's a flyer because it looks like a flyer to me. It follows some of the conventions. It has an address, it has time, it has a QR code, you know. But this, like those characteristics, are not the reason this flyer was made. And this is the point of a made event. The reason that this flyer was made is that it responds to a certain situation. There was a situation that called for the making of this flyer. Okay. And that situation was the event that um, um, this flyer is advertising, but not just the event. If we think about the the different components of the flyer, we will find some other situations too. Like, for example, we can see a QR code here. There is a situation that's called for that, which is that probably I would say most of the people nowadays have phones, smartphones with cameras. And rarely do we see a person like in the past. I remember my father used to walk and in his pocket he would have a pen and a small note. That was a long time ago. No one does that anymore. So he would take notes. But now with the QR code, you can just go to the website and if they are asking you to register, yes, students register with this QR code. So there is a need for registration. So that also the availability of the cameras and the internet made that. So we are responding to this availability with this QR code. And if you remember, unfortunately, I cannot find it. But if you remember the Amtrak brochure that I showed you, it had Braille on it. Okay. So the situation that called for the Braille was that there there are visually impaired people on the train and they had their values to attend for them. Okay. So as you can see from our work on a piece of writing like this, we are working like archaeologists. I told you before that I am from Egypt, and there are many scientists who come to Egypt and they go to the tombs of the pharaohs to find the pots of the ancient Egyptians and the spoons and their papyrus where they used to write. And they would look at it and they would identify or try to theorize the way of life of the ancient Egyptians. So, yes, this is an artifact that can tell a lot. Same thing that we can do with writings. like something like this can tell us a lot about the values of this place. Like, for example, if since we cannot see braille here or any kind of visual of auditory communication, we can assume that probably they think their target audience might not include any visually impaired people. And we can also, or they just don't care, you know, because, like, again, I have been to many institutions who had visually impaired people, but they considered them a minority and they did not have the fund for caring for them. Or maybe they even had the fund, but they did not see them as a priority. So in their communication, like they had to find someone to read documents for them, you know, which is uh, uh, a different story. So when, in light of what I just said, if we go back to the definition, we said genre is a typified response to a recurring situation. So genres are responding situations. So what about the word recurring? Why did Amy DeVette insist to add the word recurring? Because it's very important to know that these situations are not the same. Situations change. And when the situations change, our responses also change and genres change. So flyers in the past did not have a QR code, for example, because the, the situation was different. There was no smartphones with cameras, you know, so I would make people register if that was a thing through different means. Maybe I would write the telephone number, probably if they had phones still. What else? Um, so it's very important to remember that idea of recurrence. And that tells you why in this class I am resisting the urge to give you a list of criteria. Because the list of criteria is just so misleading. The list of instructions to write the infographic. Because when you go to work, and if you want to be an effective writer of whatever documents you will be doing, if your job would be tr trying to find the instructions from your boss, and that's it, that would be very, um, I would say, not right. Let me give you an example. I'm sorry, I have a lot of examples. I hope that these examples help you, and I hope that I'm not making this video long. So I was in Egypt, and my sister had she did a lab test, and we wanted the results of the test. The results were supposed to be sent to us by uh, um, like through a link that we will click. So this sent through a text message, and we click on the link. We go see it. And then we were surprised that the results were not sent. So we called, and they were like, yes, because there is an amount of money that was not paid. And we were like, we thought we paid in full. And the guy said, no, it's 25 cents remaining. Imagine, like literally 25 cents. And we were like, because in this context, the use of credit card is not like the US. Sometimes, like in many places, you need to go and pay in cash. So I went, but I was very angry because it was a long way to go there. So imagine making a whole trip to a place to pay 25 cents, and they are holding the results of the test for it. And I was angry at the person who is there. And I told him, like, is this acceptable? His response was just like this. It's the system. It is the system. This is how the system works. And I was like, what does that mean? I mean, me talking to myself, what does that mean that it is a system? Are you talking about the system as if it is something that cannot be changed? As if it's something that is heavenly made? The system is created by people, you know? And in my opinion, that this is a product of many of the people who go to the workforce with lack of training on how to make the systems and the writings responsive to the needs of the people, you know, for them, because it is we get used to things and we follow those patterns. So if I grow up on the idea that when I'm writing something, I cannot be creative, I cannot think outside the box, I cannot think what the situation needs and then adapt my writing to it. No, like I just follow what my boss has given me. So this is what we are trying to dispel here. This is a myth that we are trying to dispel. That for each and every one of you, you will be in situations where you will try to think, what is your this situation is calling you. What in the recurrence of the situation, how are you going to typify your response so you can suit that situation? Moving to the next one, I think it will just explain it more. So it says genre is a type of text that makes an activity possible or impossible. Similarly, it is responding to the situation, so because it makes some activities possible or impossible. Let's say if you drive a car on a road and there has been accidents on a certain part of the road. Every now and then you'll find an accident. And if you work in this sector, you will know like there is a need for something to be put here. Maybe a stop sign, maybe a slow down sign, all kinds of possible interferences that involve communication. Okay? So I do not want to make this video longer than it should be. So I had actually two or a couple more um, definitions that I wanted to share with you, but I think I will really like delay them to the next week when we have more discussion on that. But for this week, I want you to think about that concept of genre in light of that genre that you will be creating, the genre of the infographic. What makes an effective infographic? And what are the conventions of the infographic? And what situations is the infographic responding to? Okay. Like, and as I said, it's not just one situation. It's not just about the topic. Like each component of the infographic will be responding to something. Even sometimes the choice of colors are responding to something. Like the age level of the people that your target audience or the language. You know, we live in a society that has many multilingual speakers. Who do you want to give access to, and who do you want to deny this access from? You know, um, there are many times when I think about bringing my mom to visit me here, and my mom is in Egypt and she is a speaker of Arabic. She knows a little bit of English, but not to survive here on her own. And sometimes I think about, okay, what how long should I be with her in order to get her to do things in this place if she will stay for 3 or 4 weeks, without her getting lost, or like in especially in this part of the US, if a person gets lost, there is a life threat. Like, not unlike Egypt. In Egypt, it's warm everywhere, so you can just, you know, sit wherever you want until somebody comes up and asks them for directions, or there are many possibilities. But here, there are people who are killed by free by weather conditions. So thinking about other people who are in this country and giving them access either for their abilities and disabilities, for linguistic differences, for um, all kinds of differences, even age differences. There are certain people who um, can use technology more than others, depending on their age and so on. So when you are thinking about this, um, I want you to reflect on that. And I will write this in the discussion forum too, so you can remember. That's it from me for this week, and I will look forward to seeing your discussion posts. Have a great day.